Jerusalem is one of the oldest cities on earth. It has been conquered more than 40 times, destroyed, rebuilt, and fought over for thousands of years. But according to the Bible, Jerusalem is more than just a city. It is the center of God's plan for history, past, present, and future. Jerusalem first appears in the Bible as Salem, which means peace. In the book of Genesis, it is ruled by a priest-king named Melchizedek, who blesses Abraham. This moment shows that Jerusalem already held a deep spiritual importance, long before Israel even became a nation. The Bible presents Jerusalem as a city chosen by God, not because of its power or size, but because of His divine purpose for it. Its story begins not with conquest, but with a blessing. Around the year 1000 BC, King David conquers Jerusalem and establishes it as the capital of Israel. This was a pivotal moment. David then brings the Ark of the Covenant into the city, transforming Jerusalem into the spiritual heart of the entire nation. It became the place where heaven and earth met. David's son, King Solomon, then builds the magnificent First Temple, a sacred place where God's presence would dwell among His people. According to the Bible, God Himself declared, "My name shall be there forever." From that point on, Jerusalem was the undeniable center of worship for all of Israel. But the story takes a tragic turn. The people of Israel later turned away from God. Prophets like Jeremiah and Isaiah came with warnings, pleading with the people to return, but they did not listen. As a result, in 586 BC, the Babylonians invaded. They destroyed Jerusalem and the glorious First Temple. The people were then taken into exile, scattered far from their home. Yet, even in this moment of utter destruction, God made a promise of restoration. The prophet Jeremiah prophesied that Jerusalem, though in ashes, would one day rise again. The hope for Jerusalem was never lost, and that promise came true. After 70 long years in exile, the Jewish people were allowed to return. They began the monumental task of rebuilding Jerusalem and constructing the Second Temple. Though it was smaller and perhaps humbler than Solomon's original temple, it was incredibly significant. It restored worship and brought the community back together. Jerusalem became the center of Jewish life once more. This restoration set the stage for the most important event in all of biblical history, an event that would change the world forever. Then, Jesus of Nazareth enters Jerusalem, riding on a donkey, perfectly fulfilling an ancient prophecy. He teaches in the temple courts, His words echoing through the very heart of the city. He weeps over Jerusalem, heartbroken by its spiritual blindness, and warns of a coming judgment. Ultimately, Jesus is crucified just outside Jerusalem's walls, a sacrifice for the sins of the world. 3 days later, He rises from the dead. The Bible teaches that Jerusalem is not only where salvation was accomplished, but it's also the very place from which the gospel began to spread to the ends of the earth. Just as Jesus had prophesied, in the year AD 70, disaster struck again. The Roman army laid siege to the city, and in a brutal campaign, they destroyed Jerusalem and the Second Temple. The Jewish people were scattered across the globe, beginning a long and painful diaspora. For nearly 2,000 years, Jerusalem would remain under the control of foreign powers. It seemed as though its story as the city of God was over. But the Bible had already said that this would not be the end. Fast forward to the 20th century. In 1948, against all odds, Israel is reborn as a nation. Then, in 1967, Jerusalem comes back under Jewish control for the first time in millennia. Many Bible believers see these events as prophecy unfolding right before our eyes. The prophet Zechariah wrote that in the last days, Jerusalem would become a burdensome stone for all nations. And when you look at the world today, Jerusalem is still the most contested and talked about city on earth, a focal point of global politics and faith. So what does the future hold? According to the Bible, Jerusalem will play a central role in the end times. Scripture speaks of a time when all nations will gather against Jerusalem. It describes a period of great trouble, unlike anything the world has ever seen. The Bible also talks about a future temple that will exist in the city. It all culminates in a final, dramatic conflict where the entire world seems to turn against Jerusalem. And then, something extraordinary happens. The Bible declares that Jesus will return to Jerusalem. The prophet Zechariah says that his feet will stand on the Mount of Olives, the very place he ascended from. At his return, Jesus will defeat the forces of evil. He will bring true justice to the earth, and he will establish his global kingdom of peace. At that moment, Jerusalem will no longer be a city of conflict and war, but will finally become what its name has always meant, a city of perfect peace. But the story doesn't even end there. The final book of the Bible, Revelation, speaks of a new Jerusalem, a breathtaking, glorious city coming down from heaven. It describes a city where there is no more war, no more tears, and no more death. A place where God himself dwells with humanity. From Genesis to Revelation, from its ancient past to its eternal future, Jerusalem stands at the very center of God's great and unfolding plan for all of history. Thanks for watching. If this story fascinated you, please like, share, and subscribe for more.